All right.
Senator, welcome. Are you willing to take some questions after you?
No, I don't take questions.
You don't take questions?
Of course I will.
It's your meeting.
All right, thank you so much. As a former PEC member, vice president of the PEC, this is a great incubator to learn and to experience. Y'all are the leaders of the party. So I've had about 70 town hall meetings where I've gone over and over and over again to meet with people, talk through votes, and that's kind of what we do. I think part of what I learned on this PEC is one of the biggest complaints that we had was no one would come talk to us. No one would let us hold them accountable. So that's why I've tried to come 2 or 3 times and talk to the group. But before we get started, I want to give everybody a copy of the Pocket Constitution. I bring this with me every school I go to. I visited every school in my district. And you'd be amazed at how many people want to have an argument with you about the Constitution. They don't have a copy of it to reference. So we give that. It's got the Declaration of Independence in the back. And I would encourage y'all to buy a few copies. And as you travel around, keep them in your pocket and pass them out. The order form is on the back. And next, I want to invite you to a luncheon we're having at our house on the 20th. Billy Nungasser is the guest speaker. This will be his second time to come to our house. This is basically an event to raise money for foster kids. We have a lot of foster kids in our area just because of things that go on, and y'all know that. And there's several churches that have set up foster closets. So instead
of kids for a while, I've been working kids.
Yeah.
For a while. So.
Yeah, and so it's a big deal. And I had a crawfish bowl at my house. I invited some foster parents a few years ago. I asked them where we were dropping the ball. They said when kids age out at 18 and they're sophomores and juniors in high school, it's bad. So what I did is I drafted a bill to let them age out either when they graduate from high school or until they turn 21, because some of them, with the abuse they've been through, they're not on time, they're not going to graduate. And if you age them out at 18 before they have that degree, then what happens is we end up paying for them to go to prison, or we pay for them in homelessness. So we cobbled together a group of Republicans and Democrats. It was the only bill that made it out of Senate Finance. And that was something we were proud about. But that all came from these luncheons where you'll sit by a foster parent and you can kind of bend their ear and see if there's a way maybe you can help them. So I want to give that to you. That's about the 6th luncheon we've had. Of course, we've had a lot of speakers come over the years. Some we've gotten good press on, some we've gotten bad press on. But we always seem to raise a lot of gift cards. People just bring Walmart gift cards, whatever you want to bring. Next, and I know this is not why I'm here today, but I want to give you a copy of all the bills I've drafted. This 15-page handout has every bill that I've personally drafted. We've drafted over 60 bills in 4 years. 22 have become law. We've drafted bills to protect your Second Amendment rights. We've drafted bills to lower sales taxes. We've drafted a lot of bills. We've drafted a bill for fair flat taxes, kind of to take a look at the homestead exemption and take a look at ITEC, even before it was a conversation. Okay? So in studying these things, I promised y'all that I would remember the root word of legislator is legis, which means to write laws. Okay, and that's what we do. We also have a bill I really like, which is to abolish any boards or commissions that are inactive or aren't meeting the quorum, because that rides on our state budget in a big way. But y'all can read through that, look at it. Anything you have a question about, my cell phone number is here. Thousands of people have these papers. We've passed them out. It's just a way you can hold me accountable for the time I've been down there. And look, some of these are tough bills too. Many of them, if I had longer, when we have about a 2-hour town hall, we go through each bill and why it didn't pass. And I show people the green cards and the red cards. That's what you file when the legislature speak against something, and you would be amazed. We'd give you one example. We had a bill last session. Our firemen and policemen and first responders, they suffer from PTSD a lot. And a lot of them divorce or commit suicide, go to drugs and alcohol. Firemen are 6 times more likely to die from PTSD than on the job. And over the years, they can no longer suck it up and drink and do drugs because they're tested for that. So we drafted a bill to give them workers' compensation rights when they're diagnosed with PTSD. The only opposition to the bill was big insurance. And their argument was, well, heck, if we can extend it out to where we don't pay their benefits, then guess what happens? We don't have to pay for anything, right? The problem solves itself. So we had to stand up to big insurance with that. So that kind of is a good segue into what we're going to talk about here tonight. And I've been putting together this presentation for about 2 years because a lot of folks ask me, they say, why can't we have insurance reform? What's the big deal? Why can't we move the ball forward? Is it trial lawyers? Is it big insurance? I mean, what are other states doing? And I hope to kind of answer that question today. We're just going to look at 2 or 3 bills, because y'all are all legislatively savvy, and you know kind of the bills that have been talked about. We're kind of just kind of do a Paul Harvey. We're going to kind of give you the rest of the story on some of this stuff, okay? So first of all, you have to figure out, what does reform mean? And as Republicans, we have to have a clear, concise way to analyze when we hear stuff in the media. What does it mean? Who's it's coming from? It took me about 36 months to really have a really good filter on this. So you have one group, it's called payout reform. Okay, payout reform is tort reform. And tort reform focuses on court rules, juries, and judges. If you try to bring anything else up in that bill, they say, no, we're just going to talk about the courtroom, juries, and judges. And y'all are familiar with that. It's proposed by insurance and those who are invested in the success of insurance. So they have stocks, they have investments that correlate to the profits made by insurance companies in our state. It doesn't include language to directly reduce premiums. In fact, if you were with me in the Senate Judiciary Aid and you proposed that amendment, the author would object to it. You can't have quid pro quo language like they do in Texas. We're the only state that we get a fight on that. It uses misleading data points, data that doesn't correlate to lowering rates. It avoids modifying premium calculation equations. What I mean is, by that, and we'll talk about it later, but just think about that. That means you can't talk about the way premiums are calculated. Did you know widows pay a $500 penalty, and widowers too? And we tried to take that out of the premium equation. They said, no, we don't like that. It's designed to reduce payouts, but it doesn't provide objective factors for premium. It's going to increase premiums. I couldn't find a way to say it, but it always has a hidden way of increasing premiums. Anyone who went through the tort reform of the 90s, you know, we were promised this and promised that. Mike Foster was governor. We had a Republican House, Republican Senate. They took away a lot of rights in the court system, and our rates ended up being higher after that because there was no premium reform. And I was down there working in the Senate when that happened. I was in law school. The increased marketing is something you see when one of these bills, I mean, it's all over the radio, it's all over TV leading up to session. But it doesn't include actuary reports. That means the experts aren't allowed to come to the table. We've seen that happen a lot. And lastly, it increases rates after the policy failure becomes evident. No pay, no play didn't work, right? A lot of tort reform in the 90s simply didn't work, and they'll admit to it now. They took away your civil right, and you didn't get a reduction in return. I'll give you an example of this premium reform. Now, premium reform is known as premium reductions. Okay, premium reform is where we kind of all sit. We want to know why our premiums are so high. And so when we look at that, a premium reform bill focuses on what an insurance company can use to calculate your premiums. How many of y'all feel like they should look at your credit score to determine what you can pay? How many of y'all feel like they should look at your gender or your age or your buying power? These are all things that big insurance admitted in the Senate Insurance Committee, things they want to use, and if we stop letting them use it, then they said, I'm just going to reshuffle the chairs and charge everybody the same. Other states, yes, sir.
Okay, I understand credit scores.
Right.
Credit scores means that you have the ability, you have a really good credit score, you pay your bills. If you have a bad credit score, you don't pay your bills.
Right.
So if they're using your credit score saying, well, you don't pay your bills a lot because, well, I'm going to insure you up to a point, but then I'm going to need to insure you because you're probably going to stop paying this insurance, and I may have a claim against you that I have to pay out, but then you stop paying insurance.
No, that's not why they use it. They use your credit score because there's a lot of poor people in Louisiana,
yeah.
And once they get hacked or they have an identity crisis, not identity theft, we all have an identity crisis, right? They have identity theft, it's really hard to peel those bad things off your credit report. So what happens
is... That's just one portion of your credit report. There are a lot of people that have bad credit scores because they don't pay their bills.
Right, but what other states have done is they said you can only look at their driving record.
Okay.
Because driving record is an objective factor. I don't think they need to know how much a timber company makes before they write them a policy. You know? You have a timber company that makes $5 million a year and one that makes $50,000, and the guy making $5 million pays more. The guy making $50,000 doesn't pay as much. You also have a problem with the credit score when you have somebody who's 800 on their credit score with a DWI, they pay less than somebody with a 400 with a completely clear driving record. So they end up hedging those bets, and they basically told us they're just going to find out a way to charge people what they want to charge them. So it focuses on what insurance companies can use. So this bill really has a premium component in it. Proposed by consumer groups, pure small business groups. A lot of groups have been infiltrated by big insurance. And big insurance is their big donor. So every time they try to move to premium reform, we're going to pull our money back. So you have a really unique bedfellow situation happening right now on this issue. It includes language to directly reduce. It's in the bill. If the seatbelt law passes, a 10% reduction. They won't go for that. They won't allow that amendment. Premium requires accurate data points from an actuary and open discussions. It modifies premium calculation equations. It's designed to reduce premiums and avoid inclusion of premium increasers. The actuaries sitting at the table will tell you, hey, I like Part A, but Part B is going to kill you. And then we cross-examine them. That didn't happen on any of these bills. The actuaries weren't at the table. A heavy reliance on actuary reports. That's what you would do in your business. And it reduces rates for everyone by law after implementation. So that's just the two schools of thought. And they're not diametrically opposed to each other because most states do both. They reach a compromise. I'll vote for your bill, but you got to give me 20% reduction for my loggers. They go back, shake hands, and the seatbelt bill passes, and loggers get a 20% across-the-board reduction in perpetuity, and they move on. But that's not what happens here. And when you fight for that, you put a bullseye on you. I'm not going to lie to you. When you fight for small business reductions, they call you all kinds of names. So I'm going to give you 3 examples. The first one, this is the bill. The court can allow the jury to hear seatbelt usage to lower the plaintiff award. The judge can decide if the jury can hear the fact of no seatbelt. Okay, is that payout reform or premium reform?
Payout.
Payout reform, right? Exactly. You get the gold sticker. So it's payout reform. It's payout reform because no premium reduction is in the bill. Lots of radio and editorial support that I'll show you later. Testimony changes at the table because they're under penalty of perjury. Okay? So you write an editorial for the advocate. That's not sitting at the table after you signed a card that said, I will testify under penalty of perjury. Payouts will be reduced, but no reduction in rates. Now, y'all, you have to be smart to understand this. If payouts are reduced and premiums are not, that's just profit, right? I mean, if you can sell your item for more money, right, and your overhead has gone down, you just increase profits. This is a profit bill. Let me give you another. An insurance company can only use your driving history, not your credit score, gender, widowed status, or age if over 25 to calculate your premiums. That's premium reform, right? Because you're telling them at the get-go when you write this person's policy, you can use their age to 25 because there's objective factors that people under 25 take some risk that people over 25 do not. But you can't use it after that. So that's premium reform. The bill limits the criteria an insurance company can use to set your rate. The bill will reduce your insurance rates but will not affect payouts. Yes, sir?
When did they change that from 3-year look back to 5-year look back on insurance? Is that new?
We can't get a straight answer out of anybody that sits at our table.
They all got together and said, let's do this. And there's no law or anything. They go back 20 years. I guess we couldn't do anything about that either.
Y'all remember that play with the Saints? I know you don't remember from last year where that guy got hit in the helmet and the referee saw it, didn't call it. Remember that?
Yeah.
In the playoffs? It was a terrible call.
Yeah.
He should have called it. Well, we don't have an umpire right now. This is street ball. Okay? So this is a third example. The judge can allow the jury to hear the seatbelt information. The bill includes a 20% across-the-board mandatory reduction in premiums. The reduction is approved by actuaries as a sound and probable response to the implementation of the new law. What's that?
Both.
It's both, right? It's what Texas did with med-mal. Texas said we're going to lower our med-mal rate to $375, but you got to get my doctors a 40% reduction in their premiums. They hemmed and hawed, they got mad, but guess what happened? No insurers left. And the doctors got a quid pro quo rate reduction. So this bill includes a tort reform component that will reduce awards for plaintiffs and the premium reform component of a mandatory rate reduction. Okay? So allowing payout reform bills without premium reform clauses is no longer necessary because we have actuary reports that can pinpoint those premium reductions. So that kind of brings us up to the seatbelt law. Okay, as lawyers, we all looked at it, we all got this issue doesn't come up. It doesn't come up enough that it would reduce premiums. But there was a big pre-session marketing push. I mean, you couldn't open the newspaper without an article from someone about, oh my gosh, if we could just let juries hear that somebody wasn't wearing their seatbelt, then our rates would go down. We'd be just like Maine. It really got kind of ridiculous. And it was a push as a bill to lower rates significantly. And if you're against this bill, then you're for higher rates. It had that if-then statement that all politicians get real scared. Am I going to get reelected, right? Commissioner wrote articles and pushed the bill. There were no actuary reports, and I'm going to tell you why in a second of the seatbelt bill. We found this out 2 years later. I found it out accidentally. And there's no objective data. You can't get anyone to come to the table that's not biased to say this bill will lower rates. So the bill started, it's nothing, it's always a fishing expedition. It's real fishy how this bill gets, so it started in the Senate, and it was in transportation as a bill for handicap tags on your windshield. In less than 30 seconds in Senate transportation, the bill was gutted and changed to a seatbelt law. All right? It came to the Senate floor, and several senators came to me and said, this is a big change in the law. Are we going to get a premium reduction from this? And I said, there is no premium reduction in the bill. It's not going to happen. So we referred the bill back to Judiciary A, and we had a hearing on it. Because we thought, hey, if they've been writing all these articles, surely they have what? An actuary report. And if it reduces rates 10 to 12%, we're going to get it out of committee. Great bill. We had 57 bills, I think, come through June A. Only 3 didn't pass. Yes, sir.
Isn't it against the law to not have your seatbelt on?
Yes.
So shouldn't, if you go to trial, you know that the person was in violation of the law during an accident?
Yes, and that's what we talked about in committee.
Okay.
So what happened is when the federal government required everyone to wear seatbelts.
Right. If a person's in an accident,
right,
and the log truck at fault,
right,
but the person in the car is not wearing a seatbelt, it's up to the judge where the jury hears that.
that's what this bill would have done. And we're all for the bill. If this bill is going to reduce rates, it's out of here. Okay, so remember, I'm going to show you how this builds up because you're on track. I'm going to answer your question in the slide. Okay,
I'm listening.
Thank you, sir. So Donelon writes an article. This is in during the session. Bills would increase safety and what? Lower auto insurance in Louisiana. This is the Commissioner of Insurance. This isn't a radio host or a...
Now, I don't think it's going to increase safety, because if you're not going to wear your seatbelt, you're
Exactly.
not going to wear your seatbelt.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually what the actuary
said.
said.
You're not going to wear it, but not going to wear it.
You should be an insurance actuary because you're going the right track. Okay, legislators in Baton Rouge have an opportunity to do this and get behind these 2 bills, and it's going to be, we're just going to have rates lower. And he went a little further, said it's wrong to hide this information, right? It's wrong to hide it. You're hiding it from the jury. That's sketchy. And even WAFB did an investigative report on trial lawyer influence. And this is all before the bill even was really drafted. Okay? I mean, when we told the author, if it reduces rates, it's getting out of here. So, they're a big problem in all these issues. And the hayride got into it. It was really, it was big enough for them to get involved in it, So they got involved. It was this common sense. And then Dan Fagan writes an article. It would just drop if one law is passed. You see, if this one law was addressed, so they're building it up. And I'm like, great, this is perfect. A simple bill like this that doesn't apply anywhere to any case I've ever heard of. I did not know that. Everybody knew when we found out the bill was really supposed to be in Judiciary. She said everyone that voted to recommit it, 39 senators that voted to recommit it, every one of them was a what? Trial lawyer. There's only 5 lawyers in the Senate. We have pharmacists, teachers, retired farmers, insurance agents. So you see the spin's getting real big right now. It's demonizing lawyers, which, I knew that when, you know that just passing the bar. They don't love us yet. You lose a lot of love when you become a lawyer. Lawsuit abuse is a big deal. This bill has nothing to do with lawsuit abuse, right? It has to do with seatbelts. He brings in all this other data. So now we're at the hearing. They're under penalty of perjury. That's a defense lawyer from New Orleans, my good friend Sharon Hewitt from Slidell, and we have the Commissioner of Insurance. So here's the hypothetical I set up with him because I'm trying to figure out, is this a payout reform or is this, my premiums going to go down? Okay, and I'm tracking with you. I'm like, which bill is this? So I gave him a hypothetical. I said, a woman's in her hot odyssey with her husband. The baby throws up in the back row. She unbuckles, she walks back to the back, she checks on the baby, and they're hit by a drunk driver. This kind of stuff happens. She's slung through the side glass, severs her spine, she's a quadriplegic. Okay? That's the scenario that they want this to apply to. They don't want it to apply to the $5,000 whiplash case, right? It's the big cases. It's your wife, your kid getting hit by a drunk driver with a big policy. That's all they want to change. They want to reduce what they have to pay your family member. It's not the small cases. They'll tell you that. It's the big ones. You know, that's it. So we started a conversation with this hypothetical, and this does take a minute, and I'm going to make sure this works real quick.
Award by 80%. Her doctor must have testified also and said what she was entitled to in order to get to that $100,000. And the judge or the jury weighed the two doctors and made that decision based upon the testimony that they had presented to them by both sides. As you know, that's how the system works.
But I think the ultimate end result is going to be
she gets less.
Right.
No question about that.
So she is penalized for not wearing her seatbelt, correct?
She is penalized for not pulling over and taking care of that child in a safe fashion.
Okay, so let's say I represent the trucking company that hits her.
And actually, she's not penalized. She's getting what she's entitled to by that trier of that
She's getting
case.
what she deserves, right?
She's getting her entitlement.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I see where we're at now. So let me ask you this. The trucking company that hits this lady, they go to court, they get an 80% reduction in the jury award because they win the seatbelt issue. Is the trucking company's rates going to go down?
Not individually, no, sir.
Okay, so where do, I mean, so the guy that runs into her, his premiums will go up for an at-fault accident, right?
The guy that runs into her, yes.
Okay, so he doesn't get the benefit of this law.
No.
Okay, the person that gets run over,
The
they don't
public
get
gets
the benefit.
The public gets the benefit
Okay, how does the public get the benefit?
by lowering the cost of awards gotten from insurers that they buy their insurance from on a continuous basis for damages that were not owed by their insurer.
So are you ready to guarantee me that premiums are going to go down?
I'm ready to guarantee you that the reduction in the factor, if any, from this legislation will be the starting point for rate adjustments going forward in every case.
So we do know the mom is penalized, correct? No doubt about that.
Penalized is your word. She is reduced in her award because that's not what was caused by the driver that hit her SUV.
Okay, however we want to take it, she's going to walk away with less.
She is going to walk away with less, yes, sir.
And the trucking companies in my area, the fleet companies in my area, I cannot promise them that when I vote on this, their rates will go down. Because you can't promise me, so I can't promise them, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you.
All right, so that is a discussion where you have, I'm looking for premium reform. He's giving me tort reform. I'm trying to meet him in the middle. I cross-examined him for about 2 hours. I gave you the snippet at the end. Later, we talked even more. I said, can you promise me a 20% reduction? No. 19%? No. He goes, he'll say later, I can't promise you any reduction if this bill passes. Okay?
But insurance companies look at how much they have to pay out. If they can if there's a law passed to where their average payout reduces down, they can actually reduce their rates.
Actually, he's the one that decides that. And he says,
Well,
I
the
can't
insurance
promise
companies can present him with the information saying, hey, look, our payouts have actually reduced over time. Either because this bill or other bill, our actual payouts are less. And he can say, okay, then you have to have a rate reduction.
That's not true. Let's say you've only got six companies in Louisiana that write automobile insurance, and you've only got 100 people that are gonna buy automobile insurance. All they do is divvy us up and they jack the prices around. And then we have to move around from company to company.
But that's his job. His job is to make the
No, his
insurance
job
company.
is to go out to lunch. That's the only thing Jim Donelon does, is go to lunch with lobbyists.
I'm not saying that's what he does, I'm saying his job is to work with the insurance company and say, okay, your payout over time has been reduced from 100 to 95.
Right.
And therefore, your insurance rates across the board needs to be reduced to 96. You're still gonna get that 1% increase, but we're gonna reduce that rate. And that's part of what insurance reform is reducing, number one, the payouts to the insurance companies. I feel sorry for the lady who got hit. That's awful. Maybe they should have pulled over to the side of the road.
That's exactly what he said. He said they should have pulled over to the side, so he's ready to hold her accountable.
Right.
But when
she
it
is
comes
accountable.
Yeah, but what,
She is accountable.
right, he helped.
Because she broke the law.
Right.
She is accountable. You cannot do that. They should have pulled over to a parking lot, 7-Eleven, whatever, and say, okay, kid threw up. Let's take, because there's not an emergency there. The kid's not.
I don't want to get bogged down in the hypothetical. I was just trying to get him to say,
But that was the hypothetical.
but I'm not, but
That's
there's,
what we're into. We're into the hypothetical.
okay,
But you're letting the drunk driver still keep on driving. You're saying he may hit the next guy.
So, Mr. Butler, let me
Get into the
let me make this
hypothetical,
point.
that's where you're at.
I'll make this point, because every time I give this talk, this same thing comes up. Let me just make this point. He testified under oath that if this bill passed, the woman walks away with less. So when the 18-wheeler company is sued, the jury will reduce the award by 80% because she wasn't wearing her seatbelt. That means she's got a $2 million bill to LSU. She only collects $400,000 of that to pay that bill, then we pay the rest of that bill, okay? So here's what happens next. So I said, well, let's say I represent the trucking company. Are you still going to raise their rates as much as if they didn't raise them?
Individually, that trucking company's rates will go up.
Yes.
But the trucking company industry as a whole
Right.
will actually see their rates go down.
Okay, then that's what we asked the actuaries. We're going to get to that in just a second. So, because,
I've got to make it right here. I'll ask some questions about it.
yeah, but I have that. Okay, I have an actuary report, and we're going to talk about. So,
I've got it right here. I'll ask some
yes,
questions about it.
good. So we got a chronology of events now. So I have filed some reforms in 2016. We wanted to look at no pay, no play, because we're looking at premium reform. We're trying to test the water to see who's really serious about lowering premiums. So under the no pay, no play law, which you had to study not too long ago, if you own a fleet company, your truck bumps into somebody at Walmart, and they don't have any insurance, they didn't pay, so they can't collect the first $15,000 from your fleet policy. So I always thought if your insurance company used the defense of no pay, no play, that your rates didn't go up for that accident. And so I drafted a bill because that's not the truth. If you hit someone and they're not paid from your policy, your rates still go up.
Right.
So I drafted a bill that said if you hit someone and then your company uses the defense of no pay, no play, they don't pay anything out on that claim, that the first 3 times that happens, they can't put it on your experience modifier.
But, I mean, the purpose of no play is to punish the person that got hit.
It was supposed to lower rates.
Well, I mean, still though.
I can show you, I don't have the video from '98, but that was the point of that bill too. If y'all pass
I mean,
no pay, no
it's
play.
more of an enforcement measure.
Yeah.
I mean, at the same time, so I mean, I don't know. I just don't have a problem with insurance companies still basing, because it's all a formula, is this an increased risk? And
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense to that person to have their rates increased because now they're it's an increased risk for them.
If you represent fleet companies like I do, they do not like that law. They don't like the fact that there's somebody bumped into somebody at Walmart, their insurance company didn't pay that person a dime, and they paid $10,000 more a month because they have one at-fault accident that 0 was paid out on. It's not fair. We were the only, every state that did no pay, no play left out the defendant driver. Every other state said, we'll give you no pay, no play, but there's premium reform in there too. You can't raise the rates of the person that causes the wreck. And that, y'all see the pattern here now? They'll do tort reform without premium reform all day long.
Well, and question about the premium reform. So it seems to me that essentially the whole idea of premium reform is to dictate to the insurance industry how they are, it's rate setting. I mean, it seems almost equivalent to like back in the gap with the, was it Interstate Commerce Commission saying, railroad companies, you have to charge this exact rate. I mean, so essentially, what the car insurance industry is becoming incredibly regulated at this point. So, I mean,
when insurance became mandatory, they agreed to be regulated highly. Okay, when was waivable, they agreed to more regulations. Okay, only in the last 8 to 10 years have we backed off on regulations, and premiums have increased. Because one of the main things we're supposed to regulate is premium increases. We no longer have a rating commission. That was abolished. So there's no longer a group of businesses sitting there kind of refereeing rate increases. Rate increases can happen now without any vote of the people or even the commissioner even looking at it.
Well,
so it's a tough thing.
Well, one side effect that I think would happen is in reality, so we're saying that you can't raise rates in all these different, we're essentially saying this is your rate formula. This is how you're going to set
rates. We're just copying other states.
And it's going to be across the board. So from my understanding of the insurance industry, they raise rates for several reasons. One, if there's a major loss, like for example, the floods in Baton Rouge, car insurance rates in Baton Rouge skyrocketed because they had a major payout. They had to make sure that they stayed solvent. Right. So what would seem to me is, yes, you might have an overall reduction in insurance rates, but the insurance companies are always going to keep it at the maximum that they can keep it under the policy reform, because they have to be prepared for...
Maybe even above the maximum they should be charging.
Well, but...
Do you think that? In comparing our rates to other states?
Well, our rates are incredibly high. I mean, I still don't know if I think that directly dictating to the insurance companies is the exact solution, because I feel like just without formulating exactly how the insurance industry should be setting rates, then in that case you might actually have an opportunity for rates to be even lower than what the legislature is saying, this is what you have to do. Okay. Because you're leaving it up to the insurance industry and the market to determine what the rate should be.
And I would just say that's what we've done. We have very little regulation in the last 12 years, and you can look at your cost and see what's happened. So I filed a bill in 2016 to extend the prescriptive period to 2 years. That was killed in finance. I filed a bill to lower workers' comp rates. I served as a workers' comp judge for 2 years, saw a lot of fraud. That bill was gutted. It took away all the savings components, yet it still passed. It made it through the House and the governor signed it, but it did not, evidently, it helped premiums a lot because I spent a lot of time drafting it. I threaded a needle and it called for clawbacks, and we'll talk about that more if you like that kind of stuff. So let's look at 2018. The seatbelt bill failed. The Uber bill failed. Same reason. The same people were pushing it that said we want to have low insurance coverage. I know every other state has $1 million policy for an Uber driver, but we want to give y'all $10,000. And if you're taking an Uber to the airport and he's drunk and hits a tree, you have to go arbitrate in California. You know, it was just crazy. We said no. The bill can die. We'll pass a good bill next year, and we did, to protect citizens' rights. So what happened in 2018 was kind of the same frustration y'all just showed. The House passed a resolution, the Senate passed a resolution, it gave a deadline of March the 1st. We set up a task force, a high premium task force, and that task force had all the rights power of the legislature. It could look at any nook and cranny, it could have hearings up here, hearings everywhere, they could talk to anybody they wanted to. They had about 12 months to do it, or 9 months. They could meet as many times as they want, open checkbook, fix the insurance problem, because evidently we need some help. So the House passed a resolution, the Senate passed a resolution, and we all agreed there at the end of the 2018 session this needed to be addressed. But we also agreed, hey, this is not enough runway in 1 meeting or 10 meetings to do it. We need unlimited time to fix it. So Kirk Talbot took over as commissioner of that task force. He's a good friend of mine from New Orleans. He owns Lucky Dog Hot Dogs. He's a great guy, great stories. And so this is what happened. The task force ultimately gave a report, and it was due on March the 1st, but it was hidden from us. I'm vice chair of Senate Insurance. I never received a copy of this actuary report until May the 10th, 4 days before his bill was heard in my committee. And I want to tell you, up until that point, I was for his bill. All you had to do is like if you say my accountant said this is legal, well in Baton Rouge, if somebody says this is a task force bill, it just passes. We have thousands of things we're reading, it just passes. So He set up the commission, the commissioner set it up. I know you can't see it from here, but 6 of the 11 people were insurance lobbyists. We did not know this. So they were up really for what kind of reform do you think? Payout reform, right? Trickle down. Maybe if our profits go down or up, then we'll cut you some percentage off. I was amazed by this because, I mean, we should have drafted the resolution better. When I finally subpoenaed, or I guess I sent a nasty email to the commissioner because I told Kirk, I said, look, I can get 2 more people to vote for this bill in my committee. I need your 5-inch binders. I'm going to read them over Mother's Day weekend. I'm going to get someone else to vote because we need to reduce premiums. He would never send me the 5-inch binder. He never told me there was a 5-inch binder. I just knew from task force I had been on. It's a lot of time and energy. So when I finally sent that email on May the 10th, I was home feeding my chickens and looking in the backyard. I said, there's got to be a binder. I received 13 pages. They said that was all that the commission had done. So they met September the 13th for an hour and 20 minutes. They met October the 18th for about an hour and 30 minutes. And they met on the 14th. So I asked for the videos of these meetings. There was no video. I asked for the audio. They sent me the audio. So I set aside the whole weekend, but I got it done in 4 hours. They only met a couple of hour, 15 minutes each. Biggest problem we got in the state. And the third meeting was unique because in the audio, they said, we're going to turn this over to the actuaries, which I thought, hey, this is great. Maybe I'll get some information here to help me get some other folks to vote on the bill. So then I wrote another email and said, I don't think you sent me all the documents. I also need the actuary report. So they sent me the actuary report that I've sent to you. And that actuary report, look at this date, it was February the 19th. Plenty of time to get it to us by the March 1st deadline in the resolution. Plenty of time. So when this hit my email and I read it, and I started reading through the 10 proposals that the task force had given the actuary subcommittee. And the actuaries they picked them. I think there's 4 from insurance companies and 1 from the Department of Insurance. These are the folks that can look in the crystal ball and determine what's the seatbelt law going to do? What has it done in other states? What kind of percentage can we tag to? Okay? No more guessing, no more emotion, no more bias. The actuary is the math guy that gets held accountable. So we looked at that. I know this is really small, but they went into the bill that was in front of you, 372. I brought you a copy of it because most people don't read the legislation that we talk about. House Bill 372 had basically 4 components. One was to lower the jury threshold to 0. It's $50,000 now. That was asked for by business people. It makes a lot of sense when I explain it to you. The most a liberal judge can gig you for is $50,000. Liberal people elect 2 liberal judges, right? So if you have a liberal judge, he's capped at $50,000 on your case. If we reduce it to 0, everything goes to the liberal jury. Okay? There's no cap. You see? So we wanted the $50,000. Some people had pushed for a $75,000 cap a while back just to give people some room, because if you have a $30,000 case right now, it goes to a judge. The most he could rule against you is $49,000, $50,000. Yes, sir.
What other state has 50,000? What other states have 50,000?
Okay, so we're the highest.
Okay.
Okay.
What's the average for most other states?
Oh, it's like 10,000. But here's why.
But their insurance rates are low.
I know, but that's the data point. They're not connected to lowering premiums. And the actuary says that. The actuary says, and if we had a chance to cross-examine them, they would have said you're going to increase.
48 other states have lower insurance rates. Why aren't we adopting laws that mirror their laws? If their laws are down around 10,000, well, let's start with that.
That's what we did. I mean, we said we want it to be 0. I agree with that because, I mean, half my cases, if it's a $10,000 case, usually the judge will give us $10,000. I can go roll the dice with the jury, get $100,000. I mean, plaintiff lawyers love this idea. I mean, it's not a tort reform idea. I mean, it would cause some big judgments to come out of very small cases. And that's what you have in some other states. Okay? What it does in Louisiana, because our local governments fund our jury system. Your millage you pay in Bossier funds the Bossier Courthouse. In Texas, the state capitol funds all jury trials. So even misdemeanors in the criminal system in Texas get a jury trial. And it's expensive. You call people every week to come to jury duty. You've got to sit all day through the jury trials. You have night court. It's a cost-intensive thing. Now, which one do you think costs more for an insurance company? A judge trial that might last 2 days, where all the evidence is given to him a week ahead of time and a few witnesses testify, or a jury trial that could last 10 days? Which one do you think costs more? The jury trial. So the jury trial component, we think, was put in this bill to kind of hedge the offset of the other things that would lower rates, because it would
So
drastically...
if there's a $50,000 limit, how come Gordon out there is telling he's getting people $200,000, $300,000 in damages?
Well, that's what the insurance company says their case is worth. Most of those are settlements.
Right, so why don't we lower it down to 10?
You can lower it to zero.
Works other states.
But if you lower it to zero, a $200,000 case is already going to the jury. Okay? If you lower it to zero, you haven't done anything to any cases over $50,000. What you've done is taken your $50,000 cap and you dropped it to zero. So that means if you have a $10,000 claim against you and I'm your lawyer, say, look, sky's the limit. You know? But if you have a $10,000 case against you right now, we'll say, look, the most you could have to pay is $50,000. You know?
So then why is Louisiana bodily injury cases twice the national average?
Okay, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. So 50,000 was one of the issues. Let's see, identification of the seat belt issue came up, and the actuaries had a great, I'd never thought of this, it kind of made me rethink my foundational beliefs about this. They said you might see a small decrease on the seatbelt issue, but most of the people they found that didn't wear their seatbelt are already barred by no pay, no play. So they're already not recovering anything. So they said it's really negligible. Now, did you see all the articles I showed you earlier? If this one bill passes, man, it's going to go down. Now, it's payout reform. And when we looked at the actuary for the actual premium reform component, they said it's negligible. It might be zero. You know? And so we said, well, anyway, we'll go through the rest of these. The prescriptive period, the big pushback on that was that if nobody files suit in a year, that claim is off the books. If you give somebody 24 months to build their case against us, then in the 23rd month, we can't go back and investigate. So the insurance lobby really liked the 1 year. And now we see why, because their actuary said, you don't want to go down that route. Now, we are an outlier in that too, okay? We're only 3 states that have a 1 year prescriptive period. 48 jurisdictions have 2 or more. Most, I mean, Utah is 4, Florida's 4, Maine, I think, is 6. So, I mean, you don't hear about, you don't have billboard attorneys in the state.
Are insurance rates higher or lower?
Some are higher, some are lower. Well, most are lower, but it's not a
48
significant.
states are lower.
Yeah, but it's not so significant when you look at the raw data. And then, let's see. The Phantom Medical is something we all agreed on, because that's like lying about your medical bills. I think there's already some people looking into that have badges on. It's not something we could ever fix. I mean, it's something that was happening in the New Orleans area. And the last one was direct action. Most people knew. They said if you don't have to put the insurance company's name on the petition, then the jury will never know there's insurance. Well, when I represent a business, I'm okay with my business not being named in the lawsuit. Sue the insurance directly. That way your business name never comes up in the legal records. So if you took out direct action with the insurance company, then businesses are going to get sued in name. And that's going to be a tougher situation. And either way, just like the other stuff, it really did not reduce rates at all. The actuaries could not pinpoint. Now remember, he had this in February of 19. We did not get it till May. So let's go run through. I know I've got some questions I want to push through. So we get this big media push now. Big insurance rates might be the big contentious issue. In the spring elections, this is written in February, right after the report came out, right? This is the hayride saying, y'all better vote for this bill. We're going to write bad stuff about you. Now, did that come true? You be the judge. You know, read it today. This is what you were talking about. 100,000 people. Miami, it's only 183 people file a lawsuit, 100,000 crashes. But in New Orleans, it's 853. Look at that data. Isn't that crazy? We're not weak. I mean, you know, this term limited center is going to fix it all. The commissioner is going to help him, and they're going to lower these rates. And this one lawyer said, do something. You know, he goes, you got to do something for me. Because he's frustrated. Josh is frustrated. I spoke with him for a long time. He goes, Ryan, I'm frustrated. So I understand that. Wearing a seatbelt remains a mystery. Throwing that back up that year. So it's not a mystery. You have the report. The report says this isn't going to lower my rates. And if you want that bill passed, give me 5%, give me 6%, give me something, okay? Most everybody that you talk to about the bill, they're shocked. I mean, they're only shocked because of everything that's in the media. For 20 years, nobody was shocked about that.
Let's go through your after work report.
Yeah, we're getting there.
You getting there?
So the false narratives are shared on several platforms. That's important as Republicans to know this. Yeah, the lawsuits are out of control. That's nothing to do with the bill. And so, look at this New Orleans versus Miami. It's kind of tough to read. So I researched this. So 853 lawsuits in Louisiana and New Orleans, 110 in Miami, same 100,000 wrecks, right? Well, here's what they forgot to tell you. Louisiana has a 1-year prescriptive period. When you come in a lawyer's office, the first question they ask you is, when did the accident happen and where did it happen? It doesn't matter if it's an insurance defense firm, somebody you're sitting by at church. If we tell you the wrong information, we have committed malpractice and we become responsible for the value of your claim. Even back when I just had a title company, if somebody at church asked me about a car wreck, I had to say, where did it happen? When did it happen? All right? You got to know. So if you say, well, Ryan, my wife got hit in front of Walmart by a drunk driver. It happened July the 31st of last year. I say, we have to file a lawsuit. You have 1 year. If we don't file the lawsuit, your Porsche isn't getting fixed, nothing's getting fixed. We got to file. Okay, file the lawsuit. If you say, no, it happened in Perdido Key. We were just out driving down the beach and the drunk driver hit us. I said, well, you have 48 months. You don't need to hire a lawyer. Right? You can work on this claim yourself. You see? So that is why, see the false data point here? Of course you're going to have more lawsuits filed in a 1-year prescriptive state. Because in a 4-year prescriptive state, none of these claims ever evolve into petitions. Right? They never do.
Why not?
Because they get settled.
Well, so, okay, with
With the homeowner, they get settled with the
No.
person and the insurance.
You know, like if you bump
So,
it,
you know, I don't hire a lawyer, I sell it myself, is that what you're saying?
You might hire a lawyer, but it never goes to the court.
That's what I mean, so you hire a lawyer but never go to court.
I mean, in Florida, most people that I talked to said, look, we tell people if it's a soft tissue case, they're going to heal in 18 months, they'll get a release from the doctor, hand it over to the insurance company and settle your case yourself. In Louisiana, the only person that can file a lawsuit is really a lawyer. So you have to go hire one of those guys and file a suit. So this is what I'm getting at here, really, the point I'm trying to make is the narratives.
With regards to the prescriptive period and the direct action statute, like it would make sense to me that would overall reduce the filing of litigations going to end up being dismissed because, number one, you don't have the client walking in the office, on the 364th day of the year, and the direct action reducing the, people just not wanting to go through that process of first suing the, I guess your tortfeasor and then your insurer, but wouldn't that reduce cost, even though it might not reduce like a total judgment if it's a good case, but wouldn't it overall reduce cost because, now the insurance company doesn't have to pay, their, whatever law firm they
Okay, so I'm an insurance company. I'm a lobbyist. I say, John here said, well, that's going to reduce our payouts by $47 million if we compare it to last year. And then you as a legislator would say, how many points can you give me off of people's premiums right now if I give you this law? That's called negotiating. Well, now if I say, John, here's the deal. I'm going to make $100 million more, but I'm not going to promise you a rate reduction. Is that a good deal for you?
Well,
I mean, you represent 120,000 people in a Senate district. Is that a good negotiation for you to walk away from the table, give them more profits, and you don't take a premium reduction back to your people?
But don't we have to give their insurance commissioner tools to go to these insurance companies and say, reduce your rate. You're paying out less over time. Now then, as insurance commissioner, here's your new rate structure.
And did you hear his testimony earlier?
He said he could not guarantee it. But historically, if over time he can prove that it goes down, then he has information to make it go down. I mean, we're doing a lot of what ifs here.
Yeah,
but that's sort of what he said. If you go back and listen to his testimony, that's sort of what he said, is that I can't guarantee it's going to go down, but if I can get what they pay out less, I can go back to this.
So-
Let me say something quick. Could you put a number on it? Like, let's say if we reach this certain amount of gained profit from this bill, if we reach this number of savings, then we'll give this number in premium reduction.
That's what the insurance commissioner's job is. I can't do that.
I know, but that's why we gotta put it in law.
Right.
To make it happen.
If he had done that in the past,
Let's
just like
get it.
Jason has said, so if he had done that in the past,
Right.
we wouldn't be holding people's feet to the fire in a bill. I mean,
That's why we
Texas,
need a new insurance commissioner. We got one running.
well, Texas has quid pro quo language in the bills. If you do this, we give you the people 10%, and then they,
Oh, when Jim was talking the other day, he said about this 1 year.
Why can't we just buy across state lines on insurance, Rob?
all right, so
Why can't we just buy across state lines? Why can't I buy Texas insurance for my car on the weekend?
that's
Good question.
I mean, I'm 1 out of 39, and 1/2 or 1/3 of the
I'm
government,
just
okay?
asking, that's
Well,
all.
and I'm here saying, look, I have drafted,
U.S. Constitution.
Yeah, like the Commerce Clause.
yeah, so let's look at this recap on the timeline, because
Give it to us.
Because I want y'all to know kind of how this thing came unglued, all right? Now, the stuff in red is stuff our committee did not know until the second day of hearings, okay? So you got the 2016 bills I proposed, you got the 2018 bill Hewitt has proposed, but all good bills. Every one of them's a good tort reform bill, premium reduction bill, okay? Then we have the 2018 resolutions. The task force meets 3 times, 4 hours. Majority of the members are pro-insurance. No premium calculation issues are discussed. Not one premium calculation issue is discussed. Okay? Not buying power, no cross-examination of widow benefits or widow penalty, no cross-examination of age or gender, nothing. Meetings occurred September, October, November. At third meeting, they talked about sent it to the actuary. On February the 19th, that report was issued. And Representative Talbot said he got it. And I asked him in cross-examination, you didn't send it to anybody? He said no. But the report is not sent to the insurance committees like it's supposed to in the resolution. The task force does not meet again after February the 19th. They had no other meetings after this actuary report came out. On March the 29th, House Bill 372, which is called what? The Omnibus Premium Reduction Act. That's key. Because if it was called, this might reduce your rates if people will let us do it in 3 years, he wouldn't have got out of the House. So then what happened is they began to tell people this is a task force bill, fully vetted by everyone. They hold their hands, say all sides, okay, have vetted this. It's going to lower rates. All right? No one's seen that actuary report. April the 15th, Talbot presents the bill and tells the House Committee, task force bill. April 23rd, get to the House quick on the floor, task force bill. May the 7th, he comes to Jude A. He doesn't provide a fiscal note, which is mandatory on a bill because we're broke. And one is required, so we continued it for 1 week. Just say, look, you're coming back quick on this because we're all with you. On May the 8th, I asked for the data from the task force. I got Talbot didn't have it. We were with him. On May the 10th, I send an email, I read it, 12 pages. I talked to y'all about that. It's attached to your handout. And then on May the 14th, we had the hearing. And Talbot admits this was not vetted. It's not a task force bill. He says, I apologize if I misled anyone. Well, then he gets no votes. He got 1 vote. He had 3 or 4. But once we got through talking to him and he admitted we only met 3 times, it's my bill. And we wouldn't even ask him why he named it what he named it. Because he named it the Omnibus Premium Reduction Act, which tracked the name of his task force. Do you see what I'm getting at? So most folks just said, this is running through the House. So people ask me, why did it pass the House and not the Senate? Now, I don't want to play all this. If you want me to play a little bit of it, I will. But we asked Talbot some really tough questions. I'm upset with him. He's my friend. I told him I was going to vote for the bill. I see him out at night at the Elephant Stomp. We're talking about how to get it passed. I said, look, if you show me premium reform, I'm going to be with you. I'll get other people to vote for it. And then here we are. He's got no 5-inch binder. He's got no premium reform. And he refuses to put any premium reduction language in the bill. Now, these are 4 things insurance companies have wanted for 20 years. Surely they could give us 10%, right? So this is what happened.
Senator Gatti, and I'm not sure, but maybe don't get up just yet. There may be more questions for him. I'll sit down, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was kind of good at this in a different way. Since last week, I went back and asked that question, why are we even here on this? How did this bill come about? And why are we spending so much time on it? And then I went back and I asked for some documents. I asked for a ton of documents. I expected to get a 5-ring binder.
So that's about 20 minutes. We don't have time to watch it all. I'll email it to you. It's on my YouTube page. I'll show it to you. It's embarrassing the way I had to question him. We're not supposed to talk to people about why didn't you share documents with us. You know, I felt like Trey Gowdy, like a really southern Trey Gowdy, asking really nice questions to this guy because he had a whole year. And we were upset. He had a whole year to figure this out. And when we got the actuary report, nothing in there was significant in lower rates. And if we tried to pick the one that was good, he said, well, I'll kill the whole bill. If you move out jury threshold or 2 year of this. And I just said, I asked him one question. I just said, did you read the actuary report before you filed your bill? And he said, yes. I said, so you read it where the actuary said your ideas would not lower rates and might increase rates. He said, yeah, the bill is what the bill is. If you don't want to vote for it, then don't vote for it. And I'm like, that's not the point. We gave you this power, right? You could go look at every nook and cranny all over the whole state, premium reform, tort reform. You just had to bring us an actuary report that said it would actually lower rates. And this thing passes. Okay? That didn't happen. You know? For the amount of time and media time and pressure my family's been through over this vote, I can tell you, it should have lowered rates 20 or 30%. So, post-media coverage, after we voted, it was obvious to everyone in the room, the bill should have died. We need to rework it, come back next year, fix it. Premium reform, tort reform, just like every other state. Immediately, articles start coming out. The Omnibus, and it actually, somebody actually quoted me. There's actually this is the only article I could find that gave me a good quote. And I don't know where Ford WWL is, but they're going to get a cookie basket from Henry Burns, okay? But they actually, Senator Gatti pointed out they never met. Senator Gatti pointed out the actuary report didn't say it would lower rates, so that was pretty cool. He said this was not quoted anywhere else. The bill actually could have led to more jury trials according to a legislative fiscal note, which would have cost more money.
Play job.
And so this post-marketing diversion always works, and they play us Republicans like a fiddle when it comes to this, because we're all, I'm anti-this and anti-that. But here's what it comes down to. They print, then verify, no retractions. Okay? So that this comes out 2 hours after we voted, there's a hayride article. All right? Lawyers kill bill lowering rates. Yeah, they get one vote. So then it's shared by the PEC. No one called me. I'm the former vice president. Not one person called me. Not one person said, hey, Gatti, you shut down the abortion clinic. You didn't vote for the sales tax the second time. You know, you're our only Republican senator from Bossier and Webster and Claver Biddle. Can you talk to us? Immediately shared. Not one phone call. Caught heck over this. I'm just saying heck because my 9-year-old's sitting over there. My phone blew up. I'm down there trying to get the budget passed, trying to work on interstate interchange into Barksdale. I'm trying to work on fixing I-49, the Jimmy Davis Bridge, all these things, and this gets shared 2,369 times. Guess how many people called me to ask me why'd you vote that way? 0. Not one person. Not one person.
Somebody tell you not to vote the way you did?
One person in this room told me and said, you're committing political suicide.
Who's that?
That was Mike Collier. And I said, Mike, you brought it up. I said, Mike, I didn't come down here to do that. I mean, if I lose over this vote, I'm 100% okay with that. Because I will be able to say, I can sleep at night. I did the thing I did. I stood up for my small bit. If I would have negotiated, if I gave them 4 things they wanted and I didn't get 20% from my lawyers and my family, I don't deserve to be down there. Okay? But this was planned. I mean, like within an hour, it's shared by the PEC. Not one phone call, even to today, from anybody about it. Got some mail-outs sent statewide. At least I used a good picture. Usually I use the one where I look chubby. Not that I have any pictures where I don't look chubby, but there's a good picture. Ryan Gatti doesn't want down. Now, who's been down there longer, Kirk Talbot or me? Who knows? 12 years versus 37 months. He's been on insurance 12 years, right? Who's been down there long, Ryan Gatti or Jim Donelon? No mail-outs on him. What the mail-out should have said was, bill that would have raised your rates was a farce. You see? So well back. Today they killed the effort to lower your car insurance. This was not an effort to lower car insurance. There's no way this bill had any quid pro quo language in it. It was like the reform of the 90s. You give us more profit and maybe one day we won't raise your rates. It's not going to happen. We had testimony at Senate Insurance where they said, if HB372 passes, we're just going to manipulate the rates. We'll just shuffle the deck and charge the same. Another mail out, which most people didn't know this was negative because it's so nice. You know, it's got the pelican up there. Call Ryan Gatti. I had a bunch of people call me. I walked them through what I told y'all. They apologized. Today, now who are they quoting here? Are they quoting an actuary? Who are they quoting? Who knows Mr. McKay's credentials? Anybody know him? Does anybody know Moon Graffon's credentials? Okay.
I know he don't give no money to no politician.
That's right.
I know he gives zero money to Republicans, Democrats, anybody.
Which one?
Moon Graffon.
Well, because you advertise on the show. You advertise on the show. So this one was today, Barry, a couple of days ago. So very intelligent. Barry's a very intelligent guy. I respect him a lot. He's my neighbor down the street. I mean, quarter of a mile from my house. That's where he lives. Colt Friday posts something and Barry says, it has been reported that 372 was copied from other states where insurance rates were lower. However, the lower threshold reduces the damage awards. The Finance Committee could not figure it out either, but it has worked in other states. Okay? I mean, that's not true, but that's what you read.
Correct.
Okay, so let's go back through. No, I'm going to go back. I'm going to finish the step real quick.
Go ahead.
So then one of my kind of closer than a relative writes this article. Oh, this is terrible, terrible, terrible. Trial lawyers are doing this and that. This bill would have saved our country. It would have saved our state. It would have made America great again. And they killed it. I got the mail out to prove it. Right? So I had lunch with Ronnie, a good friend of mine, and we sat down for 2 hours at Silver Star. And at the end he said, after meeting with you, I owe you an apology. Thanks for your time. And he said some other things that were really kind. He said, I can't believe I fell for that. I said, well, look, it's coming, brother. They're going to spend $1 million and they're only about to 150 right now. You see? So next, the good, I don't know who these people are. The Good Government Coalition. I guess they're like the Pelican Institute or something. I mean, come here, Ryan, speak about why he killed this bill. I didn't kill the bill. I don't know who this is. These people didn't call me. They didn't ask me for an interview. They didn't ask me why. But I mean, did Ryan Gatti kill a bill? Ryan was a 1 no vote. It only got 1 vote. Once everybody knew it wasn't a task force bill, we couldn't vote on it. You can't vote on a bill that's supposed to be vetted by a task force and then pass it because then you really don't know what's going to happen with it. It could affect rates greatly, right? So then we had Senate Bill 89. Once again, only know one person who is in this room that has watched this bill, Jason Woolsey. He watched this whole bill. He called me up and said, I challenged him. I said, you can watch 372 and 89. He called me back 2 days later and said, wow, Gatti, this is bad. How many of y'all watched the whole debate on 372 and 89? Anybody else? Yeah, right. So Jay Leno had a bill that said you can't use credit report, widow status, gender, age, and it can't be used for premium calculation, just like other states that have low rates, right? It got 2 votes in committee, the Senate Insurance Committee, myself and Rick Ward. Who do you think voted against that bill that said you can't use that for premiums? Like if a military guy parks his car, turns his tags in, he goes off for a year. Do you know in Louisiana, he has to pay a penalty when he comes back? We're the only state that makes that happen. That was in this bill too. Nope. We'll just reshuffle the deck and charge them the same. So I don't want to watch all that. It's kind of depressing. House Bill 372 was not introduced to reduce your premiums. One of my constituents, other than Jason, went through and watched this whole debate. And they were fuming mad at me. They watched every minute in every committee on the House floor, and they sent me this video. All right? And I just thought, this is great. This is it. So y'all watch this.
If anyone has any.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as chairman of the Insurance Committee, you guys have been studying this for quite a while. Don't you have a commission set up?
We had a task force in the off season. We met, I don't know, half a dozen times or so, and we had a lot of testimony. And this is kind of the result of that task force.
Okay.
We did a task force in the off season. We had myself on the committee, Senator Bishop. We had industry people. We had consumer representatives. We had the head of the Trial Bar Association. So we had a little mix of everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this bill came out of the task force, and the task force looked at this comprehensively and came up with 4 plans.
I just want to make something clear. House Bill 372 is not a result of the task force, correct?
No, it is not a result of the task force, and I never said it was. And I hope I didn't miss.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it away from the fog of the controversy.
So what do y'all think? Did he say it was a task force bill to the House committee?
Yeah.
Did he say it was a task force bill to the House floor?
Yes.
Did Alan Seabaugh say this is a task force bill?
Yes.
Was it a task force bill? No. Now who is catching heck over their vote? Me. Y'all sent me down there to expose fraud. I did it.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Set the foundation for this.
I think we would have our
How long
picture.
you served on Judiciary Act?
4 years.
Who originally put you on Judiciary Act?
We're randomly assigned to committees based on what we do for a living.
What area put you on?
Yeah, he assigns the committees, yeah.
And how many lawyers are in the Senate?
Probably 7 or 8.
How many's on Judiciary Act?
6.
How many total members are on Judiciary Act?
7.
There's a common phrase down there that says all good bills go to Judiciary A to die. You've heard that?
Yeah, who says that?
Who says that?
Yeah.
Always.
Well, we had 54 bills, 4 died, 2 were the same bill. So we have overwhelmingly the bills that come through our committee pass. So that's another fake news issue. I'm glad we can clear it up. Does it bother y'all with her picture up there?
No.
Yes, I mean, that's the thing, Mike. I mean, I deal with it. I mean, but I'm down there reading the bills, reading the actual reports.
You want to go through the executive summary real quick?
Yes. Now, the executive summary is not as detailed as the pages where it breaks it down.
Summary's good. Page 5.
Yeah.
It says dated February 19, 2019, executive summary. Item number 1 talks about the $50,000 threshold.
Yes.
Quote, finding, while this reform is challenging to cost, the actuarial committee felt that the savings would result in behavioral changes, which would occur over time, may result in small savings of 0.5%. Agree?
0.5%, yeah.
0.5, okay. Let's keep going down. Extend the prescription period from 1 to 2 years. Extended the prescription could result in decreased costs. They didn't put a number on it, but add on to that.
Well, it was less than 0.5 because that's the lowest number they'd use.
Every little bit helps when you pay car insurance.
Okay.
Number 3, create future medical care fund. Although the actuarial committee felt that it might be small cost savings to bodily injury coverage. A little bit more.
That wasn't in his bill.
But it's in the actuarial, so it must be in the bill somewhere.
No, he put 4 of the 10 in his bill.
Then why is it in the executive summary?
This is the report that he got as a result of his task force that he didn't share with anyone. This is House Bill 372. It only has 4 things in it.
Okay, let's keep going with this executive summary, which was, I assume, was a report to do with 372.
No.
Okay,
Okay, because he said
okay,
this.
what is this then? If this is actually a report, what is this reporting on?
All right, so when we formed the task force, let me go back, I'm sorry. When we formed the task force in 2018,
right,
he had to give us an answer by March the 1st of 19, because that gave us time to file bills, okay? So they met 3 times. In the 3rd meeting, they said, we really don't know what we're talking about, let's turn it over to the actuary. So they took 10 ideas, turned it over.
So these are the 10 ideas that were supposed to go to the task force.
Task force never saw this.
But the actuarial did the computation.
Right, so the next step, so just so we're clear, the next step in a task force is that you have a meeting on February the 24th.
Okay.
You cross-examine the actuaries. You try to get them to say 7 or 8 or 9 or 0. Is that 0.5 or really, did you make it clear there?
That's fine, let's keep going.
That meeting didn't happen.
Let's keep going. Okay, so that's another more small cost savings bodily coverages. Limited damages to $500,000. The first one says no cost savings, but the second finding is for commercial insurance, the actuarial committee felt that there could be a cost savings to bodily injury, but the subcommittee did not receive reliable historical data. Oh, might save a little bit more.
Right.
Okay. So now to number 5. Limit the special verdict form to 1 line for all special and general damages. Speculated, there could be some cost savings. Shot that.
They say likely negligible.
That's 0.
Yeah.
I'll let that be a 0.
Okay.
Okay. So number 6. Revise the collateral source rule to allow consideration of collateral sources of recovery. The actual expects the proposed reform could save up to 1% of bodily injury and uninsured motorists. So that's 0.5 plus 1. Number 7. Limit recovery of general damages and property damages of distracted drivers. The actuarial committee could not cost this proposed reform, but it felt it might result in a small savings. Oh, a little bit more small. Every little bit helps. Number 8. Permit evidence of seatbelt use for comparative negligence and limit recovery of damages. Findings. The actuarial committee subcommittee agreed this proposal reform could reduce the bodily injury cost savings of up to 5%. Prohibit, number 9, prohibit evidence of insurance policy.
Before you get off of 8, when they expanded on the seatbelt issue, their report says most folks who don't wear their seatbelt are already covered by no pay, no play.
This is the summary. I assume this is the big picture.
You know, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Like, what would be the problem with the seatbelt bill? Because, like,
No
just
problem.
generally, yeah, I mean,
There's zero problem.
It's logical with comparative fault and everything. So
It's just,
I just don't see why
John,
everyone-
it's really negotiating. So if you tell me I really, really want your car, then we barter we do a fair trade. Like if you really want my car, you have to pay me a price. Now we can negotiate that price back and forth. Either you really don't want my car, or I have priced too much. But every once in a while there's a meeting of the minds. So we thought with all the hype on the seatbelt bill, he wouldn't even give me 5%. And he had an actuary report saying that, so they wouldn't promise me anything.
But the actuarial said that there could be savings in this bill.
Yeah, but
So
they
now,
said
if you go through all these 10 steps,
right.
if you add up what they actually said, savings were 0.5, 1, 5, and 2. That's 8.5% savings, maybe a little bit more.
Well, you have to take out the 5 on the seatbelt.
Well, no, I said
because when I talked to the
up to
actuary,
5%.
when I talked to actuaries about that, they said it's not.
Maybe. Well, they put it in here. 5%.
To boil
So
down.
anyway, that's 8.5% savings. With the average cost of $2,225 per average insurance,
$160.
that's $189 savings annually. Now they
That brings us to
$2,225, that's an average. If you're a poor person in Louisiana, you're paying a whole lot more than that. And if we can get some savings to those poor people, we need to do it. If we can find a bill that will actually reduce our savings, even if it's 5%, for a poor person, 5% is a whole lot of money on a day-to-day basis.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
SB 89 do that. Poor people have bad credit or no credit. So we can't check credit on poor people. That's one way that we could get that premium low.
Go for it. Go for it. Put it up there, let's go for it.
See, we're having a meeting right now that should be had at the task force.
So to understand,
it didn't happen. They didn't allow that to happen because honestly, the goal was not to lower rates. The goal was to get this bill passed, and then it was going to get to a point in the process where somebody actually read it, which typically is the Senate. All right? Because all they did in the House is they walked up and said, this is a task force bill. You heard Alan? You heard Kirk, two very well-respected members of the House. You see, this is a task force bill, so it passed overwhelmingly in the House. Lobbyists were working this bill like it was going to give you a 20% reduction. You see? And honestly, if Donelon would have told me, Ryan, I'll tell you what, I know you're going to play hardball with me, I'll give you 8.2% reduction. Bill's passed.
Did he take you to lunch?
No, we don't get along.
So,
I mean, all my friends are in Bossier, all right, and it's being limited as it is.
to kind of understand, like, I guess your ultimately, like, thought process on this and really what it is, you're not necessarily saying that the suggested policies within the bill would reduce cost and possibly some damages to the insurer themselves. You're saying that you don't trust that the market will force the rates to go down, but rather that we need to essentially force the insurer to reduce the rates.
Because here's if you work for me as a lawyer and say, look, go look at all the videos from 98 and 99 when we did tort reform.
Yeah.
Write down all the promises made, and if they delivered, you come back with an Excel spreadsheet and say, man, all these promises were made on these tort reform bills, and it never led to premium reduction.
So essentially,
so you would say, Senator Gatti, the best indicator of future behavior is past behavior. If you vote for this bill, you better get something in the bill saying it's going to lower rates, because it's not going to happen.
There's only one way in Louisiana to get your insurance rate lower, and that's to switch companies. Because if you're paid $600 a month on insurance, they're not going to offer you a reduction, Hoss. As long as you pay it, they ain't going down. I don't care how many bills he pays.
Well, wait a minute. Let me ask you a question, Ryan. It's actually two-part.
Okay.
A, the recent reductions by State Farm and several other insurance companies.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it, 8 to 10%? I forget what they offered.
I think that happened the day after session.
Well, I was going to ask you, what do you think caused that, or were they just being real nice? And then number two, what's a summary version of what you think it would take to actually get premium reduction done?
All right, so first question is, what did I think about the premium reductions that happened 48 hours after session? Well, for 6 months, I've read the papers that premiums are going up, trial lawyers are ruining the state, billboard lawyers this, that, the other. And I asked a question about advertising. I'd love to show you all this part. I said, lawyer, I said, advertising affects premiums? They said, yeah. I said, well, how much do insurance companies spend on advertising in Louisiana? Nationwide, they spend $7 billion a year. Does their advertising affect my premium? And they said, Ryan, that is a cost we allow them to bring down, and we allow them to make 7% profit. And I said, now let me get this straight. So if I have $100 in expenses this year, I make $7. But if I grow that to $300 in expenses that you say are legitimate, I can make 21 bucks. They said, will you say that again? I said, you give them 7% profit. What do you count as a legitimate expense? Marketing? Well, yeah, marketing's legitimate. I said, well, don't you think their marketing has more to do with my premium increase than billboards? No. Yeah, I guess it does. So what I thought was unique about the announcements of premium reductions right after session is that it was antithetical to everything we had heard for 6 months. And the biggest carrier comes out and says, because of competition, people are shopping, we're lowering our rates. You see? So that, I'm glad y'all caught that, because did you kind of sit there for a second and say, wait a minute, I thought rates were going up all the time. Now the session ends, all the debates have stopped, and rates went down. You see? I think, my opinion, just my humble opinion, is that they're very worried that if SB 89 passes next year, and I bring it or somebody else brings it, it's going to pass. Because we're going to have the actuaries say this will actually lower rates, and then we'll throw some tort reform on it. We'll get it through the system, and you will see an exponential lowering of rates. So what they're saying now is we better lower rates a little bit because we see what's coming. People don't care if they get reelected or not, because you can't spend 12 years down there, right? So
people don't think they lowered rates because their actual costs had reduced. Because number one,
they said it was competition.
Baton Rouge had no more floods in Baton Rouge, so they're not paying out those big payouts anymore.
No, they literally said in the releases it was because of competition.
Yeah, it's all competition.
The insurance company.
Well, and actually, what
so now listen, we heard for 6 months there's no competition. We got to do tort reform so we bring more companies in. Session's over. Okay, now the commissioner announces what? Because of competition, he took credit for the rate reductions. Now, if I could play you parts of the video where witnesses say we don't have any competition, that's why rates are high. I mean, we just kind of sit there in the committee and go, my goodness, we have a polygraph up here. You know?
Just to clarify on that, so, and I'm not saying that this is or is not the reason why, but I seem to remember that, like, because actually I heard Jim Donelon speak not too long ago, but he was saying that there was like 3 or 4 companies, maybe it's been more than that, but let's just say 4 companies, and it was a small number, and recently there was new companies that were coming back into Louisiana that left after some of the big loss catastrophes. They were coming back into Louisiana, and that was what the increase in competition was, not necessarily just between the insurers that were already here. So is that what happened, or are we talking about the insurers that are already here?
Well, we don't know, because we weren't allowed to ask those questions because they didn't release the rate reductions till the session was over.
Now,
And we were out.
Economy guy, you would think that if the insurance premiums were so very high in Louisiana, and that the insurance company would be able to charge the second highest in the nation, that we would be overrun with insurance companies who won't get those high insurance rates.
Yeah.
So why do we only have a few? Why has everybody lost our market, even with the high insurance rates we're charging? Supply and demand doesn't.
These are all things that the task force should have discussed. But you can't, I mean, we've been here an hour. Imagine having a plethora of insurance issues from homeowners and flood insurance and commercial logging and specialized captive. I mean, all this stuff, I mean, and you meet for 4 hours and 15 minutes. You know, I mean, this is crazy. We have done more due diligence in this meeting. The questions you've asked, the questions y'all have asked, we've done more due diligence in this PET meeting. I'll send you the audio of the task force. You could have said everything they said in 4 hours. You could have said it just common sense. So the second part of your question was the answer to it?
The summary of what you think it would take legislatively to reduce premiums.
Now, you know, I think theoretically you have to have a hybrid of tort reform and payout reform. I mean, payout reform and premium reform. That's what other states have done. It's been very successful. So you have to hold insurance accountable. You have to hold the court system accountable, and it's a good hybrid. Practically, I don't think that'll happen in Louisiana because of the stranglehold special interest has. You know, and they want to do stuff to only increase your premiums and reduce their payouts. That's why they like a lot of the stuff in the actuary report, because they hedge it. You know. And Barry, if you read that enough, you're going to see what I'm talking about. They hedge
I've only had 30 minutes to look.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you've already read it more than most people. No one on Senate Insurance has read it but me. No one in the legislature had a copy of it. I mean, y'all had more copies than the legislature.
Now, we spent an hour on just one vote.
Yeah.
That you had recently. If we look at your term as a whole for the last 37 months, how many tax increases did you vote for?
I mean, I voted for the sales tax the first time. I've had town halls on every vote I've made. I've had hundreds of people come to my house. We talk about this all the time. I'm open about my tax votes. I have a binder I go through. It takes about 30 minutes. But I'll tell you, a lot of us voted for the sales tax because lobbyists wanted us to vote for retroactive income tax to solve the budget crisis, whether you thought it was $500 million or $2 billion. And I just said, I can't do that to my people back home. They said, well, Ryan, you know, we don't pay income tax. I said, vote on a big income tax. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that to my people back home. They said, but you know, we would have to pay the sales tax. And I said, well, look, sales tax is fair and flat. I'm a Republican. I like fair, flat taxes. If we all agree, I'll do a 27-month, 12-month sales tax, but we have to come back and fix it. Now, the question most people ask me is, if you voted for the penny for 27 months, why didn't you vote for the 0.45 for 7 years? And I said, because the 0.45 for 7 years is $3.5 billion. And it was brought by Republicans, and they're mad at me for voting against it. Only 6 of us in the Senate voted against it. And here's the functional equivalent of what's going to happen. Because we voted for a 7-year sales tax, they said, well, Ryan, when the Republican gets in to be governor, he won't have to deal with the budget crisis until his second term. That's why it's 7 years.
Ryan.
And I said, I'm not going to vote.
You were prepared to vote for that 0.45.
I was prepared to vote for a penny for 27 more months under the caveat that we would have a half a penny go to the general fund, $500 million, to shore up higher ed healthcare in our area, fix our roads and bridges, okay? And another $500 million that would go to draw down the Trump $1 trillion infrastructure plan. Right now, we have no money to draw down Trump infrastructure money. We have none. And so a lot of us Republicans were saying, let's do the $0.50 penny to the general fund, a $0.50 penny to the transportation trust fund. And so we were prepared actually to vote for a penny, but only if it was used to draw down from the Trump trillion, because Trump said you got to have a new source of revenue, and I'm going to spread this money out not 80-20, but 20-80. Okay? And so we were prepared to vote for a penny for a short term, but not a $0.50 penny for 7 years. And I wasn't going to vote for the $0.50 penny ever, because it's not enough to fix anything, right? And so now we're in a pickle, right? Because as states around us are using their Texas sales tax and Mississippi, they're drawing down federal money from that plan, okay? So we're not going to draw it down. Nobody talks about that, right? We had to use Garvey bonds to pay for the Barstow interchange. We're having to use BP money to pay for I-49, okay? So here's where we are. Texas is using federal money. They're matching it, right? What do y'all think is going to happen when we have to pay that note off? You think they're going to say, well, Louisiana, you don't have to pay your share of this. No, they're going to use our federal income taxes to pay off their concrete. And I've given this speech 100 times. That is why I was for the penny. John Schroeder, for the penny. Talked to him about it. He said, no, you got to do the penny. There's a deficit. Let's just fix it. And then 27 months later, the Republicans filed no bills in the House to fix the budget. And they passed a $0.50 penny. And I said, I'm not going to vote for it. So that was it.
All right, let's wrap this up. And we got some other people that have to speak. Any final comments or questions for the Senator? Okay.
Thank you all again for
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
After I served my 4-year sentence, I never think I'd come back to the bench.